Hey guys, this is Coop from Garage Gym Reviews, and today I'm talking with Grant from the Strength Co. First of all, Grant, what is the Strength Co.? How did you get started? Just give me some, brief history of you and your company.
You couldn't tell from this flag what the Strength Co. is? So I'm a Marine captain, reserves now, did about 8 years active duty, opened up a barbell training gym a few years ago, 2016, 2 locations out here in Orange County, and we primarily teach the starting strength method. Almost exclusively, we're starting strength affiliated gyms, got a bunch of starting strength coaches, and so we help people, from young all the way to people in their 80s, 90s, to get stronger for their overall health and wellness, and apparently we now also make stuff.
Yeah, so you hit a big gap there that I think I'd like to, hear more about. You're a Marine captain, suddenly, which by the way, thank you for your service. You come back to the U.S. and you start a barbell training gym. What's the journey from, starting or, being in the military to starting a gym?
Right, so for me, I think that goes into how I found barbell strength training in general. I started doing CrossFit in '08. That was the first time, I'd heard of rip a toe and barbells, and I was doing all that stuff. And then when I got commissioned as a second lieutenant, and I got my first platoon of Marines, I saw them, and they're just thin, weak guys. Some of them, not all of them, but 18, 19 coming out of boot camp, they're just young and very weak. And so I thought, how do I get these people stronger to prep for a deployment? And so I put them on barbell strength training, boom. And that's when I really became passionate about it in terms of it's life-changing for people. They put on weight, they become more useful, they're not getting injured all the time, and by the way, they're becoming better leaders from, increased confidence, all that stuff. And so did that throughout the Marine Corps. Everyone kind of knew Brogy's the strength guy. And then I just kind of on accident opened the gyms. I was coaching out of my garage, people on the weekends, and I just got to the point. I remember looking at waivers one day, and I was like, I've had almost 100 people come through my one-car garage in Costa Mesa. I should probably do something about this. And this is as I was getting ready to come out of the Marine Corps, and so I opened the first location. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's cool. So why starting strength? What about rip a toe? What about starting strength that there's so many training ideologies, and there's, you could have done other franchises or something. Why do it be a starting strength gym? Which I know there's franchises. I think you guys are a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm an affiliate, but I think in terms of why be that style of gym, I think the better question would be why that style of workout, training. Right? Yeah, so I had, in college, done CrossFit. I came out here with a team in the games in 2010. I was kind of really into it. Jim Jones, 531 Windler, you name it. I was into all that stuff. And I think when I found starting strength, just the simple approach, and I think as I got a little older too, it became not so much about performance and competing and beating people, and it became what do I need to do to sustain my life? And I started to view strength training from more like a health thing, especially in the core. How do I become more durable? How do I get to the point where I can put an 80-pound pack on my back and hike 15 miles? How do I get to the point where I can pick up 105 millimeter shells that are 105 pounds over and over and load them into a howitzer? And those kind of things resonated with me, practical usage. And so when I went to open my business, it was, I saw what it did for young Marines and older Marines, but it's the quality of life improvement. The biggest thing I've done doing this for a while is getting my mom and dad to lift, because the quality of life, the extension of their life from lifting, I think is so important. And so starting strength for me, there's other ways to do it. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it bridged that gap, and it's very easy to take the new person that's never lifted and, get them going.
Yeah. So before we go into somewhat of the Strength Co.,
Yeah.
you mentioned that it started in a one-car garage, which I'm in a garage.
Yeah.
That's my thing, garage gyms.
Hey.
So, and that's also kind of like a funny story where there's some really cool businesses that started in garages. Everyone from like Harley Davidson to Microsoft, and many, within the Valley that
Right, totally.
they started the same way, bootstrap. Now there's a little bit different endeavor, a gym, but what about the garage allowed you to maybe evolve your business into something else? Like, is there anything from the garage that you've taken into your business as well that's like, that like grassroots effort that you can kind of speak to?
Yeah, I mean, huge. I think, so my one-car garage, 11 feet wide. I had a Rogue R3 platform that I built, a B&R 1.0 bar, some type of Amazon plate tree, you name it, I had a bunch of bumpers that I bought at the end of the CrossFit games. They used to sell them on the spot at the end.
They still do.
Yeah, and then a bunch of cheap cast iron micro plates and a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. And anyway, the issue I ran into was I came in and I basically packaged starting strength into like, if someone who had never seen a coach, into about an hour and 15-minute session where you come in, I break down the book, Stress Recovery Adaptation, why the program works, we get you leaving, you're leaving with a logbook and like what to do for your next workout. And I kind of packaged that, and the whole time for me it was, how do I present this throughout the whole session that by the end of it the person realizes there's only a few things I have to do in life. I have to eat something, I have to sleep, and I have to strength train, right? That was kind of like, I wanted them to see it as that important. Cool. And so I took that, because you want the returning customer, and that's when I started, basically now I ran into the issue of, I can only do one person at a time. And so I said, okay, I basically need 8 one-car garages. I had learned in the Marine Corps that I could handle about 8 people in an hour and a half to get through the program after the initial one. And so I built the gyms, I formatted them off of basically like 8 little stalls, and then put that thing that I used to do in the garage, and we called it Intro to Barbells. Hey, this is what you're gonna cover first time you make contact with someone. And then kind of did the class. And yeah, I mean, it's worked real well, and I'm proud, like the franchise gyms, for instance, because I was an affiliate gym, they didn't exist. And they've gone with this blueprint and method that we created, and I think it's great.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of unique in this like post-COVID, current COVID world about operating a business that exists on a platform is you can still socially distance on a platform, whereas like a lot of other gyms, like a Planet Fitness or something, it's just, everybody's milling around, everything like that, where I know at Starting Strength, it's like you're on your platform, you have your power rack, you have your barbell and your plates, and you're not really interacting, at least you're not, going over other places. Everything you need is right there. I mean, which is kind of like a mini garage gym in
totally. I mean, it's nothing changed for me. When new people come in and they ask, I say, hey, a class is 8 people at a time. They're like, oh, is that COVID? I say, no, it's always been like this. Like, this is a barbell 7 foot 2 inches long. Like, hey, you're already distanced. So yeah, nothing in terms of our operations now hasn't impacted. And I think that's why we're seeing home gyms spike in boutique gyms. That's what's gonna, I think, make it long term. I think, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So on this conversation with, you're operating your gym, all of a sudden this pandemic happens, and like so many business owners, you're like, what the freak am I gonna do? Walk me through what you first decided to do, or we talked about this conversation a little bit about when you got the call, hey, you've got to shut down. Walk me through what was going through your head and kind of everything that happened there.
So March things started heating up. I had a reserve drill canceled, and that was my first kind of indicator that I thought something was gonna go off because DoD was canceling drill. And so March 17th, I'd been following it and waiting, and just to what we just talked about, I kept saying, I'm safe. Everyone said, are you gonna close? Are you gonna close? Because some businesses were voluntarily shutting down because no one knew about the virus at the time, and everyone was panicked. And I said, I feel like it's safe. And I was like, so until I don't feel like it's safe, or until I'm told to close, we're open. And March 17th, County of Orange said, all fitness centers had to close. So we closed, and I invited all the coaches, not all of them, most of them over to my house. And I said, hey, let's come up with a plan. We had seven coaches at the time, and so I said, hey, we got to keep jobs, keep doing stuff. I said, tomorrow we're going to empty the gyms. And so we kind of picked like some little micro hubs. We put all the members up. I said, okay, Wendy lives there, and these 5 people live close to her, and they can all access her garage. If we get a setup there, now that covers those 6 people. Colby, oh yeah, he's over there. He lives near to those 4 people. Does Kathy know Elsa? Like, are they going to be cool? And so literally we mapped this whole thing out that night, and the next day we emptied gym 1. We emptied 8 R3s and everything, and boom, we built that. We emptied those out and built garage gyms. The next day we did gym 2, and we were just being creative along the way, and we made some like little wooden cutouts that we could install R3s under the garage floor. And when we talk about equipment later, I'll tell you, at one point, I remember I had a map with all the garage gyms we had done, and we had built over 100 in some form or fashion,
man.
right? Now, not everything had it, but in some form or fashion, we had built over 100. And so, yeah, I don't know how far to take this. I just keep going. So I gave all my equipment away, then I was out, right? And so we had serviced, maybe 50 of 150 members. And I was like,
now, in giving this equipment out, are you just renting this out, or is this just like a part of their membership?
So
it's
we never had the conversation like a formal one, but the idea was, you pay a membership and you have this service and this facility. It's now closed. My thought process was, okay, let's talk about business owners. Where did some people go wrong? And I did tons of stuff, mistakes we'll probably talk about. But I'm in a service-based business. If I stop providing value, it's the first thing they're going to cut off. I'm a high-touch, high-service business. Clients paying over $300 a month for unlimited access. If I'm closed, hey, Grant, love you, bud. Hope your business and American dream makes it. I'm out. And I get it. I totally get it. So the thought was, if I put something in their garage and then I start coaching them over Zoom, we kept the class schedule, the same hubs of people, then people won't leave. And so, yeah, I gave it to them, but they were still paying, right? And so then, at first when we closed, we'd call members and offer stuff, and some would say no, because no one knew, how long it was going to be. And so that's about the time we got 20 home gyms set up. The phone just started going bananas. Members and non-members, hey, we hear you're setting up gyms, because LA Times did a story, from gyms to garage gyms. And it just, once that happened, the phone just started blowing up. And
Go ahead. Yeah, the cycle was garage gym to gym to garage
That's
gyms.
right. That's right. Yeah. It's true. So that was all in about 48 hours.
Man.
And so then we were out of gear, and so we started making the Home Depot squat buckets, when I had made in the Marine Corps.
So you were out of gear, and this is actually how I found out about you. You had posted a video making these, squat stand buckets, which I've seen before.
Right.
But it was a well done video, and also you made it so you could bench out of it, where most people don't bench out of it, which I then stole and then made a video of it.
Right. And my video has like 30,000 views. Yours has like 30 million views, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm better looking.
You gave us credit.
Yeah. Which you also had done some other DIY equipment where you were making, I think you made a bench.
Yep.
A wooden just flat bench, which is basically the same thing Ripito sells, except his has metal legs.
Right.
And his is also, $500 more.
Right.
But
well, I didn't even want to sell the wooden bench. I didn't want to sell it. So we'll get into this. I was making them for members. Maybe I should back up. At some point, I put the Home Depot things on the store, along with just those on the store. And besides that, I had T-shirts on the store, and I was like, I'm gonna throw these up on the store. And people started buying them in Los Angeles, like boom, boom, boom. So the bench, I never thought. I made the bench to make a DIY video so that people do it. Then some guy in Nebraska calls. He's like, hey, can I get that bench?
Let's go.
And I'm like, I think his name was Paul. And I was like, the 2x4 bench? And he's like, yeah. Can you send me one? And I remember looking up at Diana or someone and being like, some guy wants to buy the bench. And I was like, yeah, let me see if I can figure out how to ship it. And which is a whole other thing we've learned. Yeah, and then we started selling benches.
Yeah, so before we get it too far into it, this whole thing happened. You rent out all your equipment, and this is one of the reasons this story I want to tell is so bad, because one, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm looking for inspiration. Other people are looking for inspiration. That just happens to be within the home gym space. And there's like this no quit, just like figure it out attitude, which I think marks the American spirit, and I think is something, I want to see never die. So the gym shuts down.
Yep.
You're renting out or lending out all this equipment so you can keep your business going. Like so many other businesses, restaurants, they tried to, pivot basically to where they're doing online stuff or like doing delivery, things like that. Happens in every industry, okay? How did you decide, or at what point did you decide to start actually manufacturing, selling gym equipment?
Yeah, so it kind of split. We closed and it went two ways. I'm lucky to have like a great team of coaches and people that, work with me here. And so I took one of them, Connor, and I said, online coaching, Zoom, here's the idea. The members had the same experience they used to have, except on a phone, go. And he was gone. And then I went to, Mike and some of my Marine buddies, and I said, hey, put all this stuff in the gyms. And then or in the garages. And while that was happening, there was a shortage, not like there is now, but the shortage started. So we started making the Home Depot one, started making the bench, and I started buying out these like fitness expos. I'd go in, they'd be like, we have 6,000 pounds of kettlebells and iron. I was like, how much? They're like, 45 cents a pound. I was like, I want all of it. They were like, what? I'm like, all of it. And I did this over, and I was going to the bank. And I was just pulling out, $3,000, $5,000. And I think they were like, did this guy just start running something or what's happening?
Yeah.
And so we just kept buying it. Hey, $1 a pound over here. And I was like, get it all, because the weights and the bars were the hard part. The bench started to sell, and then we really started to sell the Home Depot things to outside of like people that we knew. And I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, someone's going to get hurt. Like, I'm going to get sued. It's over. We got to go to steel. And that was the first thing we went to make. And the first ones were so crude. They weren't. The craftsmanship was like fine, but in terms of where it is now. So we're going, hey, should we use 2x3? Should we use 3x3? What gauge? What wall thickness? So, hey, buy it, have them cut it to this. A Marine buddy of mine's like helping me on CAD. Gym members welding them in his garage, and we make like our first 10. I throw them on the site and they're gone. And I like go back to like the welder. I'm like, hey, I need another 10. He's like, I can do it Friday and Saturday next week. We prep all the steel for him. We put them on the site, gone. And it's just like going. Then everyone wants those shipped. An online member now, my buddy Akash, I never knew him before this, Akash. He says, hey, Grant, I want to buy, we called it the Master Sergeant, the welded together. It's like the one I sent you, except that one broke down. It was all cool. The one I sent you, it was completely welded. And I said, yeah, man, I'll ship it to you. So I go to this custom box guy. There's so much that goes into logistics, the shipping stuff. And I say, hey, here's the product. How would you ship it? He designs a box. I'll send you a photo. The thing, it looks like a coffin, right? And he has basically these things in there. And I go to FedEx, and I get there, and I'm all pumped. I'm going to ship this thing. By the way, it's bare steel. Like, the thing has so many issues. I go to FedEx. I'm, like, walking in with this coffin. The lady's like, what is going on? I'm, like, breathing hard through my mask. I go to put it on. It won't even fit on the scale. She's, like, having all these issues. Finally, the whole thing happens, and I'm at, like, a business FedEx or whatever, and she's like, $363.42. And now this guy's already given me my money. To buy the thing. I was selling the thing for like $249. And I'm like, I remembered like just grabbing my credit card and being like, yeah, ship it. And thinking this is so dumb. But I thought, no, like we can do it. Like we can get this thing to San Francisco. And so I checked out. I went to the car and I called the guy. I said, hey man, I got some good news and some bad news. He's like, what's up? I was like, the squat rack's on the way. He's like, that's great. I was like, it cost me $367.32 or whatever it was. He was like, what? And I was like, but I wanted to do it, and I appreciate you having faith in my business that I could do it. How about we go halvesies on it? And he was like, dude, I'm in. And so I charged him half the shipping, and we got the first one to San Francisco. And then everything just evolved. I said, okay, now I need to look into FedEx and UPS and like, why did it cost so much? It didn't weigh that much. It's not that long. And so you figure out where the handling goes on. What's the weight limit? What's the overall girth? You figure all that out. And as I figured that out, I said, we got to redesign the squat stand to make it where it could bolt together. And that's the one you have. Which was still welded tabs and bolted together. But that was the squat stand was the first product that, I mean, we really started to move.
Now you started with the squat racks. You're selling other things. At what point did you decide, all right, this isn't just a short-term thing where we're gonna kind of like help, some of my local people and we're going to ship a few units. At what point did you decide, okay, to the Strength Co., we're still going to operate our gym, but for the foreseeable future, we don't know what's going to happen. So how do you decide, okay, this is something, where it looks from the outside looking in, you're all in. How do you decide, like, I'm just going to, bite the bullet and we're going to make this legit and we're going to do everything?
Yeah, so what got me close to that was the bench selling and the squat rack selling, right? Shipping, right? Somewhere else in the U.S. That kind of got me there. And then there's an author I follow named Nassim Taleb, and I was talking to him on the phone. Yeah, there you go. I was talking to him on the phone, and I was telling him what I was doing, and he was, and I said, what do you think? I was asking him about what he thought about safety in the gym and stuff, and he said, act like your gyms will never open back up. He said, then if they do, you have both. And I was like, that's it. And that was actually the day I called the first foundry, which we'll get into in a minute. But about that time, and this is first week of April, this was all so rapid, right? I mean, it was nonstop, coffee, monsters, just wide open, mustache growing, it was just.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah. And this was all fast. And so then I'd say things kind of escalated equipment-wise when now I went out to, a big steel place and metal place that, does fabrication, CNC, tube laser cutters, everything. And I said, I want 50 of these, which was a lot at the time. I said, I want 50 of these. Here's the specs. Here's this, blah, blah, blah. And, there's 15, 20 grand, whatever I was throwing down, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when I felt I'm all in. I mean, at one point we'll talk about the plates in a minute, but when people started to think I was crazy, they were right. But I was like, hey, at this point, I can't half do this. Like, it's either I'm in or I'm out. Mm-hmm. Half doing it, there's no margin and no money. So anyway, yeah.
So how? My next question is, how are you funding this? Because you look at the amount of money you're having to put forward to bring all this equipment in, which we're going to talk about the plates in a little bit because I know that was a big decision.
Yeah.
I know this isn't something that's like, this is how some, great fitness equipment companies, many companies in general, but specifically in our space, Rogue Fitness, for instance.
Yep.
Like you look at Rogue Fitness, Bill Henniger was a GM employee, and from my knowledge, he cashed in his 401k to bootstrap Rogue Fitness, who, in my knowledge, has no debt. At least this was, a few years ago.
Right.
And one of the largest strength and conditioning, and he owns it by himself. No VC funding, no nothing like that. So he basically bootstrapped himself, and we all know and can see what Rogue has done. So how are you turning, how are you producing the money, or how do you have the money? What are you using? Are you financing this, whatever, to start this company?
You can't tell that I'm just independently rich and famous. It doesn't just come off to you that I just have stacks and stacks. No, so I had some savings, right? I like to think my dad taught me how to manage money decently, and so when deployed and stuff, had some savings.
Cool.
I grabbed money out of my house. Was the first thing I did. I grabbed 50. I wish I'd grabbed more, but I grabbed some money out of my house, and then a lot of savings. And then, you know, I was also, while all of this was happening, the U.S. government, what they were trying to do was give people money, but they had to do it with, you know, had to be used for made in the USA products and stuff. And so I applied for some of those and got a little bit of that. But
Cool.
it was also I dumped it all in, and then as it goes, right, you have capital that starts to come back in, and then it's going out. But yeah, all self-funded, you know, it's not like I got an investor or something like that. Yeah. But it also grew at the pace that, you know, you have to sit on an inventory to do this because you have to do it at scale. And I'm still like peanuts compared to these guys, right? Peanuts, but like, you know, you have to have some type of inventory. But I say that to say at first, you know, as soon as I had something, it was gone. So whatever was invested and, you know, I was getting capital back, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so for those watching / listening, when he says he took money out of his house, he didn't just like go into the sheets like it's reverse mortgage, I'm guessing. He took equity out.
Yeah, I took equity out. Yeah. I mean, it was the once you decide, you're just managing the risk, right? And at some point you say, hey, I think, you know, there's a lot of risk here, but I think that there's potential, and you make the decision. I mean, boom, you're in. Now you got skin in the game.
Yeah. Which that story also echoes Pop Soren of Sornex, Bert Soren's dad. The way that he started Sornex, it was he's doing university installs. And the way that they funded one of their installs in the very beginning, like basically Pops and Bert were in the garage welding these pieces together, he decided to sell his house.
Yeah.
And that's how they were able to like create any sort of business. So it's like, you know, I don't know, it's just, it's cool, it's exciting. It's also, I'm sure, very nerve-wracking. It provides a lot of extra stress and anxiety on your end.
There's been zero stress all year, Coop. Everything's roses. It's just been phenomenal.
Beautiful. Yeah, you look good despite it. I mean, you don't
thanks.
look as strong as you used to.
Yeah,
at least I've seen some of your videos, but that's okay. But okay, so you decide, you know, you're going to scale this operation up a little bit.
Yep.
You're producing some other squat racks, and then you decide you're going to make made in the USA weight plates. For those that aren't aware, most weight plates, most cast iron items, and this is just for squat racks too, but most cast iron items aren't traditionally made in the USA. They're made overseas. It's much cheaper. You know, the foundries typically, at least here in the US, it's hard to get them to make stuff because they have so much, you know, business from automotive and these other places, which I think that will tie into the story, you being able to use that. But tell me, you know, why you decided to make weight plates and why you decided to make them in the USA.
Yeah, so I actually decided to make plates, you know, I think before I was even powder coating equipment or before we'd even finalized all that stuff. The plates took the longest out of everything. And so it was about in late April, I'd have to look. I know early May is when I talked to my first foundry, but late April, I started looking up foundries and I found one in Costa Mesa, right here. And I went in and I talked to some lady, you know, they had a bunch of COVID protocols, and I said, hey, you know, I'm looking to make barbell cast plates. Like, who should I talk to? She's like, you need to talk to so-and-so. She was very friendly, walked me over there. Go over there, the guy comes out, 50s, seemed angry, I don't know. And I said, hey, my name's Grant, I own this company. We make barbell training equipment. You know, I'd really like to make some plates. He's like, exercise stuff? And I said, yeah, I said, I don't know if you're like familiar with like the shortage, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, I'm not interested. I said, well, if you could just like hear me out and I could kind of show you some of the numbers on how these things are going. And I said, yeah, I'd at least like to quote a price. He goes, we're not interested in any exercise equipment. And I was like, okay, buddy. And I hope one day that guy finds me and remembers this. But
for real.
But anyway, so that left. And so then at the same time, a guy that I know that used to come to our gym starts Instagramming me from China, sees that I'm doing stuff, says, hey dude, you want to buy this? And he's showing me Titan, all kind of gear over there, plates, Troy. He's like, I can do the container, this much money, this, into, you know, the Port of Long Beach. I can do this, I can do that. And I was just so fed up at the time with the state of the country, you know, over the virus and where you think it came from or whatever, is what it is. But I just thought, like, there's people out there that believe in this country the way I do, the reason I signed up and fought for it. They think it's important, and we used to do this kind of stuff, and we should do it again, because it ought to tell people that we're not gonna crumble over some pandemic, and you know, we're gonna come back. And that was kind of like my mindset. I mean, I would tell my dad as I was doing all this stuff, in the early days of this, I just said, Dad, people need leadership right now. I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna make money, but I feel like if I take care of people right now, that like they'll take care of me and it'll work out for business. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do it in the US. Yeah, and then I went to the next foundries. I can continue, or maybe you want to comment on that. Looked like you had something to say.
No. So you're making it in the USA. I guess speak to, you know, why do you think made in the USA matters? Before we go on the conversation about the weight plates, everything that's going to be involved in that, but just like a foundational statement. You know, why do you think, you know, because this is a huge argument, not just within like the home gym community, but just like, you know, consumer goods in general, is there's a premium that has to come from things being made in the USA.
Yep.
And the consumer has to decide, am I gonna pay that premium for one, you know, possibly, depending on the product, a step up in quality, but I think more than that, it's a decision like, I'm gonna support my own, I'm gonna support those, you know, who are making in the USA. So why do you think, you know, made in the USA matters to you, and it should matter to other people buying products that are, you know, American citizens?
You know, I'm not gonna say that every item you ever own has to be, but man, I try that every item I own is, right? Because it's just, I'll put it to you this way. March, 2 gyms, 1 full-time employee, 6 part-time employees, everyone's a barbell coach. That's half the business. 2 gyms, 7 coaches. Now, other side, 2 warehouses, 5 employees that work for me, that never worked for me before March. What that does, right? The jobs, the stimulation of the economy. Okay, these things made in Anaheim by a guy that runs, you know, this big metal and fab business. He's hit by COVID too. Now he has this influx from this Marine guy that's buying all this stuff. I mean, it's just effect after effect after effect. And so when I see people that complain about my prices or complain about this, I just laugh and I go, they're people that have never done anything. They've never done anything here, and that's fine. And they're entitled to their opinion because this is America. If you want Chinese cheap products, that's fine. You know, it's the best way to put this is, you know, when people say to me, hey, Grant, why is your squat rack so much more expensive than Rep? Or why are your plates so much more than this? And I just go, if you want a Hyundai, go buy a Hyundai. I'm a Cadillac. Yeah. If you don't want a Cadillac, have fun in your Hyundai. But I'll be over here with Coop. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah. I actually drive a Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, there you go. I think it's, I just think it's an important concept. And I think with the shortage that we've seen this month, not just gym equipment, but in basic needs, like even when it came to masks and all those things, like how is it possible that you can't, because we don't make anything.
Well, not only, like, something else I think you didn't hit on, and something we're realizing right now specifically, is the fact that if we're so dependent on these other countries that are outside of our control and things that are happening here in our country, if something happens to those other countries, we're suddenly without.
Yeah, totally.
So for instance, gym equipment, you know, one of the big reasons there's still a lot of gym equipment being made is because there's a few guys like you that are making it in the US.
Right.
So like Rogue, they're still able to keep some things in stock despite the crazy demand. They're still able to meet some of that demand because they're making, not all their stuff, but they're still making a lot of stuff here in the US.
Right,
so
a lot
the reason
of it here.
that, you know, guys in California are able to have squat racks and all this stuff is because you decided to make it here. If we, you know, outsource all that stuff, if this happens again or something like this happens, you know, we may be without, you know, the equipment because we don't know how to make it. We don't have the manufacturing capabilities. We don't have the, you know, the equipment to make the equipment, that sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So
totally.
made in the USA, obviously it matters to you.
Yep.
It should matter to the consumer in your opinion. So talk me through you decided, hey, we're going to make plates, which talk me through just like the general consumer, like the person who's buying a set of plates.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's a round ball, steel. Like
Yeah.
it's not that big a deal, right?
Yeah.
Maybe educate us a little bit on creating the equipment and things like that.
Right. So, I mean, we decided to make plates, and I called RIP. That was kind of what I did first. And I said, actually, not true. I contacted someone through someone, and I got this guy in Georgia to call me or to email me. And I told him I wanted to make a cast iron plate. He calls me, and back to Taleb. Within 5 minutes, he mentioned something. I said, "Do you read Taleb?" He said, "I read." He said, "Yeah, do you?" And I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I was just on the phone with him." He's like, "Wait, what?" And so we kind of made this connection. And so he was like, "Okay, this guy's I guess that got me credibility. I don't know." So I told him what I wanted to do. He said, "Give me some specs, we'll get to you." So then I had in my mind what I liked, but I called RIP and I said, "What is your favorite plate that you've ever had?" And he told me, and it was broken, and it was in his gym. And I said, "Will you mail it to this guy in Georgia? I'll pay for it." And he said, "Yeah." So we shipped Rip's broken plate, which is an old cast iron York plate that we think was
milled
made.
Back?
Yeah, milled back. No, not milled back. Not milled back. And I should ask some more stuff to Rip about that plate. But we mailed that thing to Georgia. And then all the ones in Rip's gym, I said, out of the ones you have, what do you like? And he told me, and he gave me all the measurements. Boom, we put a caliper on everything, and he gave me all the dimensions, and he sent them to me. At the same time, I'm buying out warehouses of plates. So I'm looking at, okay, the Troy ones with the handle in the middle. Here's some old BMFCOs. And I just had so many plates, and I'm seeing, how do these handle? How is this? How is that? And then, we start coming up with it, and we start drawing it up in CAD of what it's going to be. And then obviously we want it to be accurate. And so the overall thing we wanted on the plate was, I'm talking the 45 is the most important, but was a deep lip, right? I wanted it to be thin and have a deep lip. That was kind of the ideas. And then also a tighter inner diameter. Those were the kind of creative, whatever. You're literally recreating the wheel, right? But that was kind of what we were striving for. So before we go into functions of that, let's talk a little bit about the foundry process that I don't think people understand. So Georgia goes on, and so when you make something in a foundry, you have something called tooling. Tooling basically makes the mold. Then the mold is what you see the fire iron pouring in, and then it shakes out, okay? Tooling, so I tell everything to the Georgia guy, and he's like, okay, he said the tooling process quote is about 12 weeks. And I'm like, wait, what? It's gonna take 12 weeks to get me a quote of if we can do it? He's like, I'll try and go faster, blah, blah, blah. Comes back with the quote, and just tooling, you haven't made a plate, right? It was somewhere around 50K. I don't remember the exact number. And I was like, whoa. And then he had the quote for the plates, and to me, it was almost at $2 a pound if you were go by pound. But you don't go by pound, right? Because this is the biggest problem that these idiots on Facebook and YouTube. How much per pound? How much per pound? Okay, per pound is when your grandmother's selling at her yard sale. But if you're manufacturing something, it's way more expensive to make a 2.5 per pound than it is a 45. Because when you do these things, on the ram, there's a sheet of steel, and you have the tooling on it. Well, guess how many 45s are on that? 2 or 1, right? How many 2.5s are on there? I think it's 40 on some of them or something, or 24, something like that, right? Boom, tons, right? So then, now, okay, they're gonna make so many molds every time they run that tooling. And then what type of iron? not ductile gray, but is it conversion iron? Is it to some type of spec where there has to be like PSI things? So when they decide to run something, it's not just like, hey, yeah, can you do 200 2.5s? It's like, no, we're an efficient company. We build everything for Ford, GM, and Dodge, right? You want that plate to run? Hope you're gonna be able to sell 1,500 2.5s, right? Or whatever the minimum quantity is. And so this is what people don't understand. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we got the designs, I got it, and to me, it was so expensive. And the guy in Georgia, whose name is George, and his friend said, you need to go to vertical casting instead of horizontal. He said, just do your best. And I said, okay. So I went to Wapaka Foundry in Wisconsin's website, and they have like a form that you can fill out. Like, you know, like, and it's giant
Contact
company.
us.
Yeah, giant company. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, my name's Grant. I want to make plates. Can you help? Here's, you know, whatever. I don't remember. I should ask Kevin, my sales guy, what happened. I sent it off. I never thought I'd hear a thing. I was trying to get a hold of this foundry in Utah. They were closed. It was nonstop. They called me the next day. Hey, Grant, this is Kevin from Wapaka, Wisconsin. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. And so he said, automotive has gone down. You know, we're into this. We're interested in this. And so, boom, I had already had everything packaged up from Georgia, sent it over. And he said, hey, it's usually 12 weeks. I think I can get you a quote in 6. And I said, great. And so he got me the quote for tooling. Was roughly the same as Georgia, but now the price per pound, I was like, oh, we can do this. Now, it's gonna cost more than people are used to, but it's actually possible now, you know, whereas before it was not possible. And because I never viewed this as being a pandemic manufacturer, right? I remember that was one of the first things you asked me, are you guys gonna do this post-pandemic? And I remember thinking at the time, like, no, Coop, I just dumped all this money out of my house and my whole life saving just for a few months, right? But you know, in my mind, it was long term. So, hey, yeah. Is there a market for people that want made in USA and they want what, in my opinion, is a better product than what's out there and are willing to pay more for it? And so that's kind of where we ended up. And so then we got rolling, right? And, you know, I had to also, hey, a startup company, it's not like we'll bill you when you get your first plates. They're like, oh, we're not doing anything till you overnight us a check. And you're like, oh, gosh. So that was when the first kind of calamity happened. So I had all the designs, right? So quotes come with all the specs and everything. And, you know, we're working on tolerances. Foundries are usually within like 5% tolerances when you're talking weight. So I had to get them down to 2 to like make everyone happy. And that like took some time. We get everything rolling. They send me pictures of the tooling, or the patterns they're called, that go on the RAM. I'm like pumped. I'm like posting a photo of the 45. By the way, I was doing this before Rogue, just for the record. But I post a photo of the 45 and I beat them to market. And I'm like pumped.
That's true.
Got beat in the market. And the first samples are run of the 45s. And I'm getting them, and I'm trying to get photos, right? I'm telling people, like, you don't understand, I need photos. People like don't believe me right now. They think I'm just some guy like that's manic screaming that he's making things. Like, show me photos. So I asked them, can you go take a photo like holding the plate of the samples? And they send me the photo, and I go, oh no. And the lip on it is, I have it, let's see if I have enough microphone here. The lip on it is huge, right? Huge. And I don't know how
it's so thick.
I don't know, yeah, right? Old school fat lip. Or yeah, whatever. Thick, so dude. I was like, oh no. And I'm showing it to people that don't know anything, and they're like, what? It looks great. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like gonna be hard to hold. Like, I'm worried about it. And then my cousin was like, I'm looking at the photo of the patterns, like it looks the exact same. It was just like something that hadn't clicked in my own head, and so I immediately like freaked out. And so I said, we have to change it. And so I call, I tell them we have to change it. Is it possible? And they're like, yeah, we can retool it, but it's gonna be 12 weeks. I'm like, it can't be 12 weeks. Like, what are our options? And so basically what we ended up doing, the face of the plate, like the part that you made the cornbread in, that's called the web.
Yeah.
That's called the web index, right? And so I raised the web index because if I just trim down the lip, what happens?
Be light.
They go light, right? So I raised the web index, which got rid of a little bit of depthness, but allowed me to shorten this down.
Cool.
And then I cut the spokes off a bit, but it did take another 4 weeks, right? Because they have to retool it, and another 10 grand, right? So like all that first one was just worthless. So while we're doing this, I said, okay, let's go ahead and run coatings on the samples. Because like when people think when you get a sample, like you get like 2 plates. No, you get like 100 plates, right? And you're like, oh great, all these fat lip plates. So I said, let's go ahead and go to coating. And Rip had been telling me to do raw iron the whole time. So also, I started pre-selling.
He would, man.
Yeah,
He would.
I started pre-selling these in July. So, like, I don't even have the product, but I have to get capital coming in. And I tell people end of August, because that was the initial timeline they told me was like August 24th I was going to have plates. Then the lip messes up, right? So everyone that's bought plates, I go ahead and email. And I just own it. And I say, hey, I think my design's flawed. I'm changing it. It's going to add 4 weeks. You'll have a better product that you can give your grandkids. And everyone was like, especially all the early buyers, like, oh, Grant, thanks. Like, we can't imagine, blah, blah. Like, most everyone was pretty supportive. So we get the lip down. Then we go to decide coating. And the founder's like, you can't go raw iron. You can't go raw iron. You can't go raw iron. They're like, it's going to rust. It's going to rust. And I said, well, I feel like we can, as they're like a dip, and so we're looking, they have some rust inhibitor dips, they have this, they have that. They're like trying to recommend me paint. I'm like, you don't understand, I have York painted plates in my gyms, like they're all shredded. They're like, well, we can do e-coat, but that's the price. And then they started trying to really sell me on clear coat. They use it in the automotive world a lot. And at this point, they were telling me how it was gonna be, and I said, yeah, let's go for it. And so they clear coated a set of 45s. And they clear coated a set of the old, the fat lip plate 45s. Boom, here it is. And it came to me, and I pulled it out of the box, and I thought, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I love the color. Yeah. It looks like iron. It's amazing. Let's make a video. Right, I'm like posting our finish is the greatest, and these are just stuff you learn as a business person. And I like make this. We film all this stuff. I'm like, go edit that. I want it on YouTube tomorrow. And I'm like, that's so sweet. Camera dude leaves, grab the plate, like put it on the ground, chip. And I'm like,
oh gosh,
no.
Are you serious?
Yes. And I grab the other plate and I lightly bump it against it. Chip, flake, peel, chip, flake, and I'm like. You've got to be kidding me. And now it's, this is, I'd have to look back at the dates, but this is August. Because every day that goes by, there's another customer that I'm very glad I've won their support. But like when this stuff happens, I'm like, oh no. So I like call on the foundry. I'm like, dude, my poor sales guy probably just thinks I'm insane. I'm like, dude, this is the worst day. I'm like, it's terrible. He's like, it's terrible. I'm like, I hate it. He's like, you hate it? It looks great. I was like, it's chipping, it's flaking, it's peeling. I was like, and I haven't even deadlifted it. And he's like, I was like, back to raw iron. And this is when he said, well, let's try e-coat. And so I think I had already gone to the foundry once at this point. Yeah, I'd gone to the foundry and they had showed me kettlebells. I won't say who makes them, with something that was a clear coat finish that was black. And I looked at it and it looked great. And that was when I was like, hey, I'm in on clear coat. Because they were telling me this, I was like, hey, I'm just coming out there. So I flew out there and looked at everything. And we went with clear coat. And then, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so then we switched back. It's not working. So he said, let's go to e-coat. Well, what happens now? You got to go back through the whole quoting process. Right, because so there's a lot of players involved. You think you're like buying the plate from the strength co, which you are. But the strength co is using this foundry. And this foundry is using a machining shop and a painter, right? So like when we change coating, to them, they're just selling me the finished product, right? Even though I've been to all these aspects, so it changes the whole thing. So then I'm like sitting on pins and needles, like I've already pre-sold. What if it comes back and it's expensive? What if there's like no margin left? Like, what am I gonna do? Are my people gonna be mad that I changed the coating on them? First I told them it was rust inhibitor, dipped. Then I told them it was clear coat. Told everyone, look how great it is. Then I told them, it's gonna be e-coat. Like, what's gonna happen? It came back and it was actually roughly the same cost, like almost the same thing. And I was like, phew. So now we have the design going, we have all these things, and we go to the foundry, or I go there, I go to the machine shop, I see that whole process, we're running, and I've now like updated, like, hey, we'll be shipping mid-September. And then all the 2.5 start to break. They go to machining, and when they were machined, they would just break. And I don't know the details on this. This was like not really my problem. Well, actually first they were like just messed up. Like the back had a bunch of like holes and stuff. And which is, if you look at like, York made a deep dish that I first bought in my gyms. And if you looked at it, it was like stucco, right? And that's how the natural cast is if they're not machined or if they don't have a good process to break it free from the mold. I mean, that's why this stuff's way cheaper, right? Amongst other things. Yeah. So they weren't that bad, but it didn't match like the 45 finished product, right? It wasn't there. So we had that issue. Then we finally resolved that issue. Now the 2.5s are like kind of like falling behind, but they're waiting to like send everything else to get coated. So I'm like, just send it, like get everything else going. Like we'll figure out the 2.5s. Then the 2.5s start to break. Then we fix that, and that was like a machine thing, nothing to do with their like structural integrity, but like way too much pressure or something. But all of these things are just things that are happening when you're going from zero product to a product line, right? And so this is what people don't understand. Hey, the lettering you can't read well on the 25. Hey, you know, it's just there's so many things involved. And meanwhile, we're back here game planning, where am I going to warehouse this thing? Should I do 3PL out of the middle of the country so that people don't have to pay so much on shipping? Then you're trying to call all these big companies. Hey, I want to do 3PL. I have these product comings. What are your box sizes? Hang on, my custom box size hasn't gotten back to me. How should we ship these things? Should they be shipped in pairs? Do you put 3 45s in a box? What if someone orders 6? Do the 10s and the 5s and the 2.5s ship together? Do you sell them as a package or a la carte? Why did this asshole buy 4 sets of 5s and 45s? Makes no sense, right? And you're like figuring out how you're going to ship all this stuff while you're manufacturing, because the second I get the product, it needs to go out. And so, you know, we started getting the custom boxes made, and I got those, and I was looking up 3PL, and I'll tell everyone now, because people ask me all the time, you know, hey, can you just ship mine directly from the foundry? And I'm like, no, it's like not how this works. But I'll tell everyone, it is cheaper for me right now in this pandemic, and I don't know when it'll change, to tractor trailer everything from Wisconsin to California, warehouse myself, hire a staff to package, and ship to you, even if you're in Florida, than it is for 3PL. Because no one's ready outside of Rogue Fitness, I guess, to box up 90-pound boxes, right? No one's equipped to do that. These 3PLs, I mean, sure they are, but it's not. Again, why? Because no one's doing this. What's the closest thing? Lodge cast iron pans, to be honest with you. You know, like outside of that, like, so then we're trying to get set up for the plates. Everything was moving along pretty well. Timeline was now end of September. I guess we just fast forward a bit. I mean, there's probably a million things I'm missing, but the first shipment came, right? And it was like,
How much did you order? How much did you have on order for that first shipment?
So I had ordered around 80,000 pounds, but a truck holds 44,000, right? So I'm in a warehouse with a roll-up door. This is like another thing, right? Logistics is everywhere. I have a roll-up door. So what does that mean? It means I have to have a forklift. I never thought I would have bought a forklift this year, but I have a forklift. Well, what does that mean for when the truck comes up? Well, if it comes in a dry can, you know, a big regular semi-looking thing, I'm no good, right? I can't unload that thing with a forklift. So I can buy a pallet jack, but I can't get everything to the front. So how am I going to ship these things? I'm going to have to ship them on a flatbed so I can get around and get it. Well, maybe I should just get a warehouse with a loading dock. Okay, I'll get a warehouse with a loading dock. Oh, I got to move an hour inland and get at least 10,000 square feet because no one makes a warehouse with a loading dock that's small. Why would you? Why would you do that? Like these are all, so this is commercial real estate, this, by the way, insurance, like all of these things. It's my favorite, Coop, when they say, hey, can I get a discount? Right? That's my favorite message ever. No, you can't. You have no idea. So the first truck, so we got it all set for the flatbed to come in, 48,000 pounds, tarped and covered, and it came in. It was supposed to arrive on a Saturday. So I hired team drivers, about 30% more in cost, so they drive through the night. Because now at this point, hey, where are my plates? Hey, first you said end of August, then you said mid-September. Hey, where are my plates? And it's still got to transit to them. So we're setting up at the back end too of all the shipping. So think about this. All right, I'm going to get 44,000 pounds is going to land, and it's all pre-sold. So what am I going to do? Have my small truck driver show up, UPS or FedEx, and put you have to coordinate all that. Well, that's not just like call UPS or FedEx. You got to get a rep, get that set up. Hey, I need a tractor trailer here on a Saturday with a pallet jack in it, and I need it picked up Saturday night and another one Sunday morning. You're going to do what? Yeah, I think I'll get through half of it. So I want it at the shipping facility on a Monday. We don't do weekend pickups. You need to do weekend pickups. We're changing things. Like you have to adapt to what's happening. So we did that. So everything landed, we unloaded it, and it was just a zoo. It was just absolute bananas. Everyone was ready. I have like the strapping machine, everything, but all of a sudden there's pallets of weights everywhere, and it's just, we have no idea what we're doing. We thought we did, right? Had the pallet jack, had the forklift, had the custom boxes, had the cool strapping machine, had the extra help ready to work, had the foam inserts, had it all. But like, as you start going, there's cardboard inserts flying, there's stuff everywhere. Like, it's just like absolute. Oh, by the way, I need to ship all this stuff, but I need to take product photos. I haven't even taken photos of this product because I haven't had it. I've been selling everyone off a drawing from a coloring book, right? So it's like, you're going through all this, and finally, we get through it, and boom, we box up half of it. Then I'm looking at it, I'm loading it on the truck, and I'm like, I haven't tested any shipping. I have does two 45s with a single 45 and a separate box strapped to it make it to South Carolina? How do two 25s ship? How do 10s, 5s, 2.5s go? Is that double ply box strong enough? Is that double wall enough? That one's 250-pound load test. Like, how many straps do I need? 4 or 8? And I'm looking at the pallets just going, oh, come on, just make it, right? Because I'm testing it. I'm testing with 44,000 pounds. So Saturday we do the first thing. I create a label. It makes a tracking number. That tracking number doesn't become active that you can do it until whatever service scans it. Now it's active in that database, right? Otherwise it just says label created. Now it's boom, it's headed to the facility, whatever. So 96 out of 600 packages have a bend in the label, right? So their label gets voided, get relabeled, scanned, and shipped. I have no tracking number. You as the customer have no tracking number. What happens? Box breaks open over here, this over there. By the way, the logistics industry is just swamped right now. It's just absolutely swamped anyway. So overall, we did actually really great. The planning actually went pretty well. I think it was about, out of the first 600, it was about 15 damaged products, right? And it depends what you're calling damage, but but we learned a lot, but it had gone pretty well, some of the preparations. But that's just a whole big thing in and of itself. And I mean, just because think about it. You have two 45s in the same box strapped together. Why are we doing this anyway, right? Because people are weak. Because now someone goes to pick that up at whatever facility, they go to pick it up, and they're like, oh my God, dump it on this pallet, right?
Yeah.
Iron on iron. I mean, so like for 45s, for instance, for now, we all have single custom boxes, and it's a single in there, and then we strap the two together so it has a more cardboard padding. And then also it's like, this is the other thing, you know, because it's a high-end thing, people want it to show up pristine, and as they should. But E-coat's great and durable, but it's not bulletproof. Like when you squat with that and deadlift, like over time, it's gonna wear, right? And so you're just trying to mitigate, you know, in shipping logistics, you know, getting there. But yeah, that's kind of some of the highlights. And then as we're doing this, you know, now I'm constantly looking down range, you know, how do I manage this inventory, you know, where I'm not sitting on a whole bunch, you know, do I need more warehouse space, like for the space, the physical space reasons, and then also like extended capitally, right? So as this is happening, what's happening? America's starting to roll again. What's that mean? People starting to buying cars. What's that mean? Big three needs to produce cars again. What's that mean? Lead times, right? And so you're now having to pitch. I mean, I'm already have product landing through January, but you know, if I say right now, hey, I want to make this, I probably have it, I don't know, last week of February or something. You know, I mean, and that may get worse, right? So it's constantly managing that. I mean, it's why, it's probably why, you know, Rogue's been slow on their second run. You know, they got that first run out there, then you haven't seen anything. It's, you know, it just takes time, but yeah.
So, a lot to unpack there, but one thing I think that piled on to the difficulty is you decided to do a full run of plates. So you've got 45s, 35s, 25s, 10s, 5s, and 2.5s, right?
Yes.
Whereas competitors, they're mostly doing like your 45s, 35s, 25s. They're not even considering the change plates.
Yep.
So what was the decision in doing a full line? And looking back on it, would you do it again?
Yeah, 100%. I never thought about, it was never a decision not to, because for me, I am a barbell coach. I happen to make equipment because I'm a barbell coach, and I believe you need to get stronger, and I believe you need 2.5s. The only decision I made was not to do 1.25s. To be honest with you, that was the only decision, because I tried to, but it's, you know, I thought if you're going to do it, I mean, because you're right, each plate's a different tool, right? It's not like, you know, so each plate's a different tool. But yeah, to me, it was never really a decision, and it was great for us. I'm glad we did, because then you had, you know, Rogue come out and didn't go below 25s. What happened? 10s, 5s, 2.5 sales went through the roof, which was great, except I wasn't prepared for that, because how am I doing quantities? Average person wants 4 45s, 2 25s. If they're smart, they want 4 10s, because we don't make a 35, obviously, because it's stupid, 5s and 2.5s, right? And so now when I'm doing this, I have to manage minimum orders, like meaning from the foundry, minimum quantities I have to run, at the same time manage what's the average guy gonna do. So like obviously 45 sell the most. Then Rogue reliefs, and guess what? Strength codes happen, actually theirs happened to match mine because I was first. And hey, now I have this set that looks great, right? And so great for us, but now the quantities are like out the wazoo. And so these are all things that you're managing, right? And go back into the lead time. First truck's already hit. By the way, first truck, only 45s and 25s, nothing else, because you just had to roll with it because we were having issues with the other stuff. So what did that mean? I mean, we learned how to ship 45s and 25s, but when 10s, 5s, 2.5s came, we still had to test all that on the second run that came. So anyway, I'm kind of scattered right now because that's how it was. It was like hand-to-hand combat. Like you're just constantly making decisions, trying to make something work. But yeah, it's good. Did your small plates come?
Yeah. No, I haven't got the small plates yet.
I should have come.
I'm sure they'll be here soon.
Yeah.
We get shipments every day, so we'll be on the lookout.
Yeah.
But one thing about you coming to market, and this is something I always talk about, is it creates more competition, and more competition is better for the consumer.
Totally.
Without a doubt, because what it does is it puts pressure on other people. So for me, for instance, garage gym reviews, we get copied all the time, and people always get upset, like, you know, you're like, these guys are doing what you're doing, you know, but it's what it does, I've realized, is it just forces me to be better. It just forces me to innovate, forces me to improve. It's like, if people want to copy what I do, go for it, because guess what? I'm going to do something else. You're not going to be able to compete. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I mean,
so
that's
it's like that innovative standard.
Yeah, it's like even with this, you know, when I was posting the specs and everything of all on the plate online, people are like, aren't you worried someone's just going to take that and go? And I say, go for it. Go for it, man. I hope there's another American out there that wants to take all his money and his savings and give this a shot, right? And because we will be better, because that's what, I mean, that is, Rogue has tons of great products, right? But they've also been the only show in town since, you know, CrossFit brought them to glory. And so I think you need competition. This is another reason why more things should be made here, is because it causes you to be better and to do things correctly. But I still remember first gym, bought the York deep dish plates. Foundry was out of Canada, which has since been closed. They all showed up to me, and they were 16.75 inches tall, right? Short by almost an inch or an inch. I didn't even know at the time, and I'm like a barbell coach, pretty smart guy, I thought. I didn't know. I'd gone with deep dish. I thought it was cool until, like, you have strong people in the gym and the whip on the bar and all that stuff. And I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I need more plates. So I go back to York, call my salesman. You know, it's funny because now I'm on the other end. I remember thinking like, oh yeah, like I buy gym's worth of equipment at a time, right? Like, get me on the phone with my salesman from York, and now I'm like, when someone's like, do you offer discounts? And I go, they go, do you offer wholesale? I say, sure. They go, okay, great. I'm looking to get 1245s. I'm like, oh no, I meant like 48,000 pounds. But anyway, I ordered back from York. The new deep dish plates came, different lettering, different color, and guess what? An inch bigger than my other ones. So now I have all these plates in the gym. You put one on, you get the idea. And I call, they're like, oh, we must have moved that foundry moved to China and blah, blah, blah. So quality control, all those things, but no one cared before. Back to what we're getting at. And so I think competition and making sure things are correct and right, you know, is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it's not just the idea, it's the execution.
Right.
Execution is more important. Everybody's got ideas, they're walking around with them, but it's executing it. But when we're talking about competition, we posted the Strength Co. 45-pound plate, some beautiful photos we posted on Instagram. That night, Rogue released their product page for the deep dish plates. And you cannot tell me that didn't have any relation, you know, because Rogue, just like you and I, they're competitive, dude. They want to win. You know?
Of course. I was using the foundries. Those two foundries know each other. So I was using that. I'm like, my competitor is making this. And they're like, yours is going to be better. And I'm like, mine needs to be first. And then, you know, Bill would post, late August, right? And I'm like, oh, I think he's going to beat me. And then I get pushed to September. I'm like, he's going to beat me. And then someone says, still late August? And he goes, going to be tight. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he's feeling it too. And, you know, it goes back and forth. And I always laugh because I look at all of it. I talk to my buddy Paul, and he just always sends me, I'd call him, dude, the plates, they're fat. I'm so stressed. I'm trying to do this. Blah, blah, blah. And then he always just sends me Bill's grilling stuff. He goes, Bill's just cooking meat, Grant. Bill's just cooking meat. And that's like always our joke, but I'm like, he's feeling it too. He's feeling it too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but that was interesting. You posted, and then they went for sale that night. Let's talk about why there's variance. Iron, I guess, and I'm not a metallurgist or whatever they're called, but there's something they call conversion iron, right? And so I used to work in concrete. You have different PSIs, right? So when you make concrete, you make like, you know, these little tubes, and then you crush it and you see what the PSI is. So this is probably the easiest way for people to understand. 1,000 PSI, 2,000 PSI, 3,000 PSI, 4,000 PSI. So when you're doing this kind of thing, unless you're doing like an engineered spec of iron, saying like it must have, they run a test, I can't remember what it's called, but if you look on the back of the plate, let's see, yeah, right up here, I forgot, and I'll take some B-roll so we can see this later, but right here there's a little, see that little dot? When it gets done, boom, they hit it to check for the denseness. So now if it's like to some certain spec, then that iron has to be brought to that level and run. I'm using conversion iron, meaning we're pouring this high spec right now, and later we're going to pour this lower spec. But if it's to spec, I'm only pouring the iron when I'm at that spec. So I'm here and I'm headed down to this one. I'm making cast iron plates, I'm making cast iron pans, I'm making that kind of stuff. So that's why, and now what happens? Density, all that stuff. Again, I'm not the metal scientist here, I'm just like giving you things. So that's why there's some variance. So if it gets a little heavier, a little lighter, what happens then? What's the way to control it? Changing the diameter, right? I'm not changing the web because the tooling's made.
Yeah.
The tooling's already made, so I can machine it more. Well, what does that mean now? Now I got varying heights everywhere, right? So plates are gonna have, and you actually had my samples. So I actually opened up the OD like a whatever of an inch, tiny bit, and we got a little bit of weight out of that. So this run in general, people send me photos all the time that says 45 on the nose or whatever. In general, what I would tell you is they're between 44.3 and 0.8 is what I've gotten in here, right? And you know, everyone's, why is it light? Why is it this? Well, you know, it's just part of what it is. Do I wish I was at the 45.3 to 45.8? Yeah, absolutely I do. And like maybe we'll find a way to get there, but you're gonna have, when you're dealing with iron, there's gonna be some variance in there.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody while they're lifting is gonna notice, you know, point whatever on the bar difference between the sides. It's not going to matter.
Right, and that's only in the 45s because the smaller stuff's been dead on. But the other thing that people don't remember too, it's a home gym. So what does that mean? It means that you're using the plates, right? Now I'm selling to gyms too. It's not all home gyms, but that's something that people need to think about. Like, if all of my stuff is 44.8. You know, there was someone that commented, I think on your page, that was like, oh, so now when I deadlift 405, it's only 398. I'm like, bro, like put 7 more pounds on or whatever. Like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. But yeah.
Okay. So we talked about kind of your past, talked about a little bit of the present. What's the future for Strength Co? What's next on the horizon? Is it just, you know, going through these waters and figuring out plates? Or do you have some vision for new products and things like that you can speak to?
Yeah, you know, I'd say for us, I'll go back to why am I doing this? I'm a barbell coach. I'm very passionate about strength training, very passionate about getting people stronger for their health and wellness. And so I see all of this as a conduit for that. You know, we service, so the future of the Strength Co, I think plates and barbells, I hope to be in that business, you know, for a long time. Depending on what happens with everything else, I'd like to stay in the squat rack business and all that stuff for a long time. A lot of competitors there. We're gonna see, when things come back online, do Americans care about made in the USA versus made in China? Do they care about a, you know, higher quality product? And I'm not just talking plates, I'm talking everything. But for our future, I see, you know, obviously our gym's open, our barbell gym's open, but I see servicing the home gym through coaching as a really big part, and really kind of think Peloton. We do this for people all the time. Oh, you want a home gym? Here's the whole package to include your coach. Right, and so that's kind of where my vision is, because that's what I'm passionate about, is the coaching, and I love, you know, the manufacturing, all that stuff. But yeah, I think we're here to stay with plates, you know, bars, all that stuff.
Great. So last question.
Yep.
What do you see as the future of fitness? I talk about this quite a bit. What do you think the landscape looks like? And I'm talking specifically, you know, we're talking commercial gyms, home gyms. I mean, training principles don't change. You know, what makes people strong doesn't change.
So, I mean, yeah, when you phrase it that way, but what I mean is, I think right now, we'll talk about whether we see big gyms or small gyms, but I think something else that's happening is, what does this cause people to do? It's cause them to say, what is like simple, accessible, and effective, right? Same thing like when you're deployed. What do they give you? They give you barbells and weights, you know, in different locations because it works, right? And it's simple. So when I say training principles have changed for people, I mean, you got these, you know, OC housewives and other people that go to spin, Pilates, this, all that stuff, and then boom, they have no options. Maybe their husband's got something. He's like, let me show you how to deadlift. And they're like, this is way better, you know? So I think in general, and not just all barbell training, but in general, I think we're seeing people kind of migrate back to, you know, something that's lindy, that doesn't go away with time, that's going to last. So I think barbell training is in the future. Now, how is it packaged to people? I think big Globo gyms are done for the next 5 years. 2 reasons: commercial real estate, locked in leases, we're closed for so long, we're already seeing them all closed. You know, Gold's, all these places, they can't handle the equipment leases. I think that's going to be a huge part of it. The second part, I think, is PTSD from the consumer. You got the diehards, they don't care, they'll go back in the gym, 100 people in the room. But you got to remember, Americans went through something that no one in our lifetime has gone through, and they were not prepared for it whatever way, and there is PTSD from significant events. And so they being told nonstop, the gym's unsafe, the gym's unsafe, the gym's unsafe, the gym's unsafe, the virus is in the gym, whatever, that's gonna stay with people. Even if everything's open and allowed to be open, it's a weird feeling to people. So I think next, 3 to 5 years, you're gonna see home gyms and boutique gyms, kind of go on the up. And rental spaces, I mean, that little speakeasy gyms we created where 5 neighbors, that happens all the time. I go, hey man, you bought a lot of weight. Like, oh yeah, it's going in the cul-de-sac. I'm the guy who has the garage, and everyone's gonna do it or whatever. And that's cool. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to hit on? Anything you want to talk about?
I think as people are going home, so why do people go, in my opinion, to spin, Pilates, the rowing places, all that stuff? They want to be encouraged. They want to be held accountable. Why do they pay, right? Because now they have to actually make themselves go. It's the same reason people come to a barbell gym. I always say people come to the barbell gym to learn how to get strong. They stay for the accountability, and the programming and all that stuff, sure, whatever. But so the future of the fitness landscape, I think moving away from big 24-hour fitness, that kind of stuff, moving into homes and small gyms, and I do think a lot of the coaching stuff's going to go online. And you probably have a lot more data on this than me because you're more, toned into people or whatever. But I assume templates and online stuff that people sell is just through the roof. Because I know our online coaching didn't exist before. Because I hated it. I was like, I'm not doing online coaching. I don't want to watch a video of you deadlift and do it. I liked coaching because I have fun with you in the room, convincing you to do something, and there's a lot of elements happening. When we started coaching like this, I was like, oh, I feel like coaching again. I'll do online coaching, but it's live. But in general, I just think that's probably, gonna boom, because people still want the accountability.
Yeah. Well, technology allows us to do that. There's so much that technology, and the fitness industry is very archaic in some of these ways in comparison to some other industries. But technology can allow the best teachers in the world to teach everybody.
Right.
It's like education. It's like, you go to a local school, but you're only able to be taught by the people that are within your region, right? But technology has allowed us to have YouTube where everybody can learn from the greatest minds,
right.
Like you're talking about Nassim Taleb.
Right.
Not only can I read about him, but I can listen to him on podcasts and see him in video, you know what I mean? So that same thing can be done for fitness. And I think it is being done, and it's only going to grow. And then we see all these, there's all this different, connected fitness gear that's, I talk to founders every week, and they're like different ideas, and some of it's stupid, some of it's good, some of it's based on barbells, some of it's based on just random crap. But I do think that there's going to be a market for that as well, in bringing technology into the gym. So
yeah, totally.